Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are diving into not one but two stunning card projects featuring the magnificent Magnolias Craft Your Life project kit from Altenew. Now, this beautiful kit is part of their May release, and I'm absolutely loving the coordinating elements it includes. We have a gorgeous stamp set, matching dies, stencils, and even a 3D embossing folder. Well, before we jump into the creative fun, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. The Craft Your Life project kit is a monthly subscription plan by Altenew, and with gorgeous Magnolia edition, you get everything you need in one coordinating package. We have an elegant Magnolia bloom, heartfelt sentiments, and so much more. This all in one kit makes it incredibly easy to create sophisticated and meaningful card projects without any fuss. Now, everything comes neatly packaged in the Altenew signature storage pocket, which makes organizing your supplies a breeze, especially since you can keep all those coordinating pieces together in one place. Let's start with this beautiful, magnificent Magnolia stamp set, which features two graceful Magnolia branches, and we have five different sentiments. Now, these sentiments are beautifully scripted phrases along with a variety of smaller sub sentiments that pair perfectly. Next up is the coordinating die set, which is designed to create layered magnolias in different sizes and perspectives. What makes this even better is the Altenew keyhole system, which simplifies the layering process, making it quick and effortless to assemble these blooms. The set also includes dies to cut out those large eye catching sentiments. I like to trim magnetic sheets and attach them to the flaps of the storage pocket. This keeps all the little die cut pieces in place and easy to access. The front of the packaging shows how these flowers can be assembled and layered together, but once you have them all laid out, you will find it a lot more easier. And well, later in the video, I'll show you what exactly I'm talking about and how easy these flowers are to layer over each other. Moving on, we have coordinating stencils which will help you add color to your stamped magnolia branches and even lets you add textured details to the vases that are featured in the embossing folder. Last but not the least, we have the Magnificent Magnolias 3D embossing folder that showcases three unique vases inspired by sleek, modern ceramic designs. You can use them as standalone focal points on your card fronts or combine them with the stamped branches and layered magnolias for a beautifully dimensional look. Well, that was everything included in the Craft Your Life project kit, Magnificent Magnolias. The kit truly has all the essentials to kickstart your creativity. In fact, I'd say it makes a perfect gift for someone new to crafting. It comes complete with a 6 by 8-inch stamp set, coordinating dies, a layering stencil, and beautifully detailed 3D embossing folder. All you need to add are some lovely inks and cardstocks, and you're all set to start crafting right away. Let's dive into card number one. For this design, I'll be creating a beautiful floral background using the die cut magnolias along with a stamped magnolia branch as my focal point. I'm starting with an A2 size card panel which I've placed on my brand new Altenew stamp wheel. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video yet, I would highly recommend checking it out. I did a full unboxing of the stamp wheel, shared a project I made with it, and well, also gave my initial impressions on this tool. Now, to begin with, I will be stamping the magnolia branch right in the center of this card panel using Memento Black ink. I double stamped the image to ensure I got a nice and crisp impression. Thanks to the sticky mat on the stamp wheel, my cardstock stays perfectly in place, so there's no worry about shifting or getting a smudged image. Since the stencil was slightly larger than the stamp wheel platform, I decided to switch to another ultra sticky mat, an old favorite of mine that I have had since a really long time. It's my go-to whenever I'm doing ink blending or on larger panels like this one or even on smaller die cut pieces. Now, to prevent any ink from going outside the stencil lines, I masked off the edges using post-it notes. For blending in finer areas of the stencil, I used my mini ink blending brushes by Cat Scrappiness. They are perfect for those tiny little details. You'll notice the stencil aligns beautifully with the stamped magnolia branches. I began by blending in some lovely shades of browns from the Simon's Stamp Positively Saturated Ink collection. On the same stencil layer, there are also leaf elements which I colored using a mix of green tones to add depth and variation. I also added a touch of brown at the base of each of those leaves to give them more depth and dimension, and I absolutely love how this panel turned out. Well, honestly, you could stop right there. The stamped and stenciled branches and the leaves are beautiful on their own. Just add a sentiment from the same stamp set, and your card would be complete. But of course, I wanted to take it a step further and try out the layering dies. Well, I have used Altenew's floral layering dies before, but this is the very first time using the keyhole system, and I was really excited to give it a go. To start, I die cut all of those tiny little floral pieces using white cardstock. Each die block cuts out the petals for an individual floral arrangement. There are four different flower designs in this set, and thanks to the unique keyhole shapes on each one, it is super easy to match the layers correctly, making the assembly process so much more smoother and quicker. Here is a closer look at two different flowers with the different designs of the keyhole. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This design makes it a lot more easier to assemble all of those little petals and creating into a beautiful bloom. Next, I placed all the little die cut pieces onto my ultra sticky mat, which is perfect for holding them in place while I add color. This is where the fun begins, adding some soft ink blending to bring those petals to life. Well, I chose to keep the flowers very clean and simple with minimal coloring. Using the Cadet ink from the Positively Saturated Ink collection, which is a gorgeous shade of blue, I added ink just to the centers of the petals with a mini ink blending brush for a soft and subtle look. Once all the petals were colored, it was time to assemble them and create beautiful floral arrangements. I always keep the layering guide that can be found on the back of the die packaging nearby to make sure everything is aligned correctly. For assembly, I use my Barely Art liquid glue and I apply it on the center of each of those petals and layer them one by one to build a beautiful flower with lots of dimension and beautiful details. The keyhole system really simplifies the layering process and it takes the guesswork out of it. I love how thoughtfully designed these shapes are. We've got keyholes, arrows, triangles, each one acting as a visual guide. And with multiple different flower types in this set, those distinct shapes were incredibly helpful. They serve as a foolproof alignment markers, making it super easy to line up each die cut piece correctly. All you need to do is match the shapes and you're ready to go. Plus, the system also makes it so much more easier to identify which die cuts belong together. No more mixing up the layers. Now, it definitely made the whole process of layering floral die cuts so much more easier, straightforward, and enjoyable. Here's a closer look at the beautiful texture and dimension on this flower. It's truly stunning. And it's not just the petals that have layers, there are small layering dies for the flower centers as well, which adds even more realism and detail to the final look. I went ahead and assembled the remaining flowers off camera, so now we have four finished flowers ready to arrange on our cut front. As I mentioned earlier, you could easily leave the panel as is with just the stamped and ink blended branch for a clean and simple look, or you could go all in and add all the four flowers to create a fuller, more detailed background. I spent some time experimenting with the floral arrangement, trying to find the perfect placement for the flowers on my card front. While doing that, I noticed that the white tips of the petals were blending with the white background, making them a bit hard to distinguish. To fix this, I decided to add a soft wash of yellow behind the flowers. I figured the blue centers also would really stand out against that subtle yellow base. So I gently blended yellow ink along all four edges of the panel, fading it inward towards the stamped branch, just enough to give the flowers some contrast without overpowering my design. Before adding the flowers and the sentiment, I added a few black watercolor splatters to the card front for some extra visual interest. Once the panel was completely dry, I stamped my sentiment, which says, "Have a blessed day," from the same stamp set. To ensure perfect alignment, I used my grid transparency sheet. That's my little trick that I always rely on, and stamped my sentiment using the stamp wheel. I have to say, I'm really loving this tool. It's made stamping so much more precise and effortless. After stamping, I used my piercing tool to gently lift my cardstock from one edge of that sticky mat. With the sentiment in place and all of my stamped image done, all the ink blending and the splattering done, it was time to adhere the flowers. I added foam tape to the back of those floral images or die cut pieces, giving the card a lovely bit of dimension. Well, here you'll see how beautiful this card turned out. Very clean, simple, and elegant. I'm glad I chose to use just two flowers, and with the sentiment position in the lower left corner, I think that creates a beautiful and balanced focal point. Now, moving on to card number two. For this one, I'll be using the Magnificent Magnolias 3D embossing folder. This folder features three beautifully designed, elegant vases, each with intricate details. The coordinating stencil set allows you to easily add color and bring those designs to life. You could emboss all the three vases onto an A2 size panel to showcase that full design, but I decided to do something a bit different. Instead of embossing all three, I took a small scrap piece of white cardstock and focused on just one of those smaller vases to use them as my focal point for my card front. Once I was done embossing, I used the coordinating stencil and added some soft coloring to the vase, and I absolutely love how that turned out. Here I am using beautiful soft shades of blacks from the positively saturated inks. The 3D embossing adds amazing depth and texture, making the image feel dimensional and rich. To finish the piece, I carefully fussy cut around the edges of the vase with my scissor. This will be the main focal point of our card today. I made sure to position the vase on the panel in a way that left enough space on the top of the panel for stamping my magnolia branch. I used the same branch stamp as I used in card number one and colored it using similar shades of browns and greens to keep the look cohesive and harmonious. While stamping, I made sure to mask off the parts of the branch that I didn't need, specifically the areas that would end up hidden behind the vase. My original idea was to create two cards with a similar look, which is why I chose to use the same branch stamp set from the first design. However, if I was to recreate this card, I think I'd go with the other branch in the set, the one without the leaves, as it might suit the layout even better. You could also choose to leave the branch uncolored, which would then give the card a very clean and simple look. If you're not familiar with the term CAS, it stands for clean and simple, a very popular card making style that focuses on minimalism and elegance. With the embossed focal point piece and the stamped colored branch ready, I moved on to the sentiment. Off camera, I white heat embossed the lots of love sentiment and die cut it using the coordinating dies. I also die cut the sentiment two more times using plain black cardstock and layered them together, and well, then later on went on to add some similar watercolor splatters and assemble the card together. And here's a look at both the cards that we created today. You might notice I originally planned to add the die cut flowers as well on my second card, but in the end I decided to keep it simple. I truly love how both these projects turned out. Even though we were using the same set of products, we were able to create two completely different looks. One which features a rich floral background with a minimal sentiment, while the other that showcases a textured focal point and a bold sentiment strip, offering a clean and elegant contrast. Well, that's a wrap up for today's video, and I hope you really enjoyed watching it and found some inspiration along the way. All the supplies that I used to create the cards will be linked down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.